South Korea is ushering a new era with its once opposition candidate Yoon Suk-yeol elected president now. But what does it mean for the crypto industry in the country? Welcome to the Daily Forkast March 10th, 2022. I'm Angie Lau, editor-in-chief of Forkast, covering all things blockchain. Well, crypto policies were high on the agenda among election campaign promises in South Korea. So, what changes can we expect in the country's crypto landscape with a new president in power? All that in the shadow of America's president putting a new focus on crypto, blockchain, and finally, a U.S. digital dollar. We're going to take a look at that, plus a whole lot more coming up. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world.
Join thousands of NFT traders who already start their day on CryptoSlam.
Let's kick off with the latest on how the conflict in Ukraine is impacting the crypto space and vice versa. Russia and now Belarus face another blow as sanctions widen. The European Union has also confirmed that crypto assets are included in sanctions imposed on the two countries. The EU explained that crypto assets fall under the scope of transferable securities. Sanctions are in place against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine and also on Belarus for its involvement. The new measures on Belarus include prohibitions on the SWIFT banking system, similar to those imposed on Russia. Now, cryptocurrency has been identified as a possible method of circumventing economic and financial sanctions. But there's still a way for Russians who rely on crypto, as many crypto exchanges have said they won't block Russian users from their platforms unless there's a legal obligation to do so. Millions of cryptocurrency dollars continue to pour into Ukraine in donations, and the Ukrainian government has also set up crypto wallets directly. But are people in the country actually able to use the currency to buy daily necessities? These are really important questions, and at the same time, major crypto coins have been gaining value since the attack. What's driving their rise? Well, joining me right now is Mark Lamb, Chief Executive Officer at CoinFlex, a leading crypto derivatives exchange and yield platform. It's great to have you on the show with us, Mark.
It's great to be here.
Okay, so, we are just watching the crisis in Ukraine and watching crypto donations to the country. It's crossed the $54 million threshold, still pouring in. I'm sure the numbers will just keep fluctuating higher. But given that physical on-ground infrastructure has been hit, are people actually able to use digital coins to meet their needs of everyday items? How is this working?
Yeah, so one of the major payment providers that's been supporting Europe and including the Ukraine, I think they have several Ukrainians on their team, is Go Crypto, and they've been actually really active in kind of supporting a lot of this infrastructure. They've been supporting a lot of the donation infrastructure as well, but they offer kind of bridges between fiat and crypto in Ukraine. And I think the biggest thing that people on the ground need is money. So donations are kind of extremely useful. But then obviously as it goes from that donating to spending, at some point along the way, it is converting back into fiat currency. But there are enough, options to be paid in crypto further down the value chain as well, that I think there is that actual secondary and third level transactions happening as well.
And the donations are coming in mostly Bitcoin and ETH, as we understand. We've also seen some NFTs actually being donated here, but stable coins have been missing. What explains that?
If you think about the perspective of the people on the ground, stability from volatility is probably the thing they would need. But if you're someone who's been a crypto investor for a long time and you've seen huge gains, I think that's the reason why the Bitcoin and Ethereum are being donated is people have made money on their coins, and so they're feeling generous. So it's a bit of a wealth effect going on effectively, and that's great. If you think about crypto, it's created a whole ton of wealth for people. And one of the benefits of that wealth, you can't just spend it all on yourself, is people are feeling very, very generous in a time of need.
That's a great point. One Bitcoin once upon a time was X fiat, and now it's sharing the wealth in real time where people need it most. Finally, major crypto coins really rebounded from recent lows since the Russian attack occurred in late February. Is this driven by the need to find a reliable store of value? What do you think?
Generally speaking, when you're looking at these sanctions, they're a double-edged sword because the U.S. is effectively using the dollar as a weapon to fight Russia, and obviously that's kind of been to varying degrees successful in crippling Russia, but it's also something that it has an effect on people's perception of the dollar. So there's talks in policy circles around confiscating Russia's hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign reserves. That's a very extreme move. It hasn't fully happened yet, but if that were to happen, I think it would be sort of a wake-up call to a lot of other countries that maybe they should look at the only asset in the world, or the only group of assets in the world that don't have a counterparty risk. When you hold Bitcoin, when you hold Ethereum, when you hold these cryptocurrencies, there is no counterparty for the decentralized ones, at least for the ones that are significantly decentralized. There is no risk to someone confiscating your funds. I mean, in a conflict, everyone loses. Everyone is a loser, and that's why I think you haven't seen crypto prices go up more, is because amidst some of these positive signals for Bitcoin and for Ethereum and for crypto, and Bitcoin's really leading that charge, there's just the negative backdrop of war, and war is depressing and horrible.
It really shows that the new front lines is not only in the conflict zone, but it's also being drawn right now in real time in the digital world. Thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate this conversation, Mark. Turning to some of the key stories coming out of Asia today now. India's biggest crypto exchange has responded to the government, saying it sees revenue opportunities from crypto. WazirX founder Nishal Shetty counters this argument, saying the 1% tax deducted at source, or TDS, in every crypto transaction in the country, in India, will result in huge losses for the Indian government. Now, back in February, the Indian government imposed a 30% tax on crypto income and the 1% TDS on every transaction. Well, Shetty explains that the TDS tax means that trading volume will go low and profits as a result will go down. His suggestion? Lower the TDS to 0.1%. He explains this would instead mean $100 million in TDS earnings for the government. The WazirX founder's math turns the table for the Indian government, but will his call be heard? Of course, we're going to be keeping watch on this story. You can find this story and a whole lot more on Forkast.News. Over in South Korea, opposition candidate Yoon Suk-yeol has been elected president in a closely fought election in South Korea, with crypto promises featuring prominently in his campaign agenda. Forkast's Danny Park has been covering this presidential race from the very beginning and takes a look at what the crypto sector in Korea could see from Yoon's presidency.
Yoon, who won the election by just 0.73%, made a raft of promises regarding cryptocurrencies during his election campaign, taking in everything from investor protection to ICOs. The newly elected president said he plans to take stronger measures against illicit actions in the market, while also promoting the industry. One key issue for Korean investors is the 20% tax on profit from digital assets, set to come into place next year. The threshold is currently set at 2.5 million won, or around $2,000, while the threshold for stock gains is set considerably higher, at 50 million won. Yoon has promised to equalize those thresholds, something that one 25-year-old investor told Forkast they hope is a top priority, as having crypto in equal standing to stocks would be very significant. Another election proposal was reapproving initial coin offerings, or ICOs, which have been banned by the country's financial regulator since 2017. To protect investors, Yoon has suggested they be supervised by bank-certified and licensed digital asset exchanges as initial exchange offerings. Yet another pledge involves establishing a basic digital asset law focused on recovering unfairly gained profits from illegal activities like market manipulation and incomplete sales. One expert told Forkast he is hopeful for change.
법에도 없는 규제 그런 것들을 만들어서 사실은 이 업계를 옥죄고 있거든요. 그런 것들이 없어져야 된다고 생각하고요. 금융위원회나 금융감독원의 행태는 전체가 다시 한번 리뷰가 돼야 된다고 생각을 하고 이런 것을 굉장히 잘 이해하는 분들이 지금 캠프에 들어가 있기 때문에요.
Meanwhile, the altcoin icons price surged as much as 60% as ballots were counted in the election. At a startup event last December, President-elect Yoon minted his signature as an NFT on the Icon blockchain. The Icon Foundation congratulated Yoon on his victory, tweeting that it's an exciting development for the Korean crypto space. So let's see if those promises are kept. For Forkast, I'm Danny Park.
From South Korea to the U.S. seems like a presidential day for a new direction in crypto. President Biden's new push for a U.S. central bank-backed digital dollar is no doubt welcome in the age of bifurcating systems, one we've seen so quickly materialize as China remains one of the few places that Russia can actually still financially transact with. But with the U.S. starting to define what characteristics a U.S. CBDC or digital dollar will take on, one thing's for sure, it will be a counterbalance to China's ECNY already in use in some cross-border payment capacities. Another political front, perhaps, in the digital world emerging. And that's the daily forecast from our vantage point right here in Asia. For more, visit Forkast.News. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.